Dear friends, greetings to you all. This is an urgent update due to the energies that are being downloaded, to use or more precisely, that were downloaded on the 22nd. There was a powerful, extremely strong energetic system that was downloaded to everyone, meaning that each individual received and integrated this energy into their own being. This occurred due to, let's say, the immense and overwhelming volume of energy that was present at that time, as well as the upcoming interconnected chains of events that were set in motion as a result. Additionally, this process was influenced by certain specific states of consciousness and various life processes in general, all of which contributed to the overall experience and transformation that took place. So I might be a little slow in my speech since I'm driving, but the time has come, When there's an impulse, it needs to be acted on immediately, because the energy sent through the impulse system is electrical. And the more of these impulses we put into action in our own space, the more actively our energy will move. That is, the various events and occurrences in our lives will actively move, shift, be created, resolved, and so on, changing and unfolding in different ways over time. In other words, there won't be those so-called stagnant periods. So, starting from yesterday, it will no longer be possible to push just one agenda. What does this mean? Well, the vibrations of the earth itself have increased so much, and the density has changed to experience this as extrasensory perception, sensitivity in dreams, and mental sensitivity. In other words, I understand what another person is thinking. I feel another person. I can't be in certain places. That's mental sensitivity, yes. In addition, aside from these extrasensory abilities, we suddenly decided that we would all now become guides, healers, and so on. In reality, this sensitivity is an active unfolding due to these energies. So this change in density, specifically the change in the Earth's densities, what activates all these processes that are taking place. Moving on. When the energy came in, it actually arrived over the course of a week. In fact, this was already a preloading of the summer solstice. We had already started to feel it, to sense the codes that would be transmitted. And the summer will essentially serve as a kind of preparation for the entire process. In other words, we will be receiving short impulses, micro-programs, supposedly allowing us to preview the entire path that awaits us in the upcoming cycle. The cycle is 9-18-32. That's the kind of cycle it is. So certain programs will be activated within these cycles. For example, a program might be activated. Let's put it this way. You will be transmitting knowledge, yes. This program is activated in a person, and in May, the number of people attending their classes or participating in certain systems actually increases. In other words, the person initiates this impulse due to the energies that have entered them. So he sets this cycle in motion for at least 9 years. And then there will either be a turning point, meaning an expansion of this energy, a transformation, for example, opening his own school or something else, or on the contrary, a change in direction. So it will depend here on the level of awareness of the individual, on the processes, on how he will integrate and go. So the energies that have come in now, people who used to live by only one truth, for example, the body. Let's take pure fitness as an example. When a person is solely focused on perfecting their body, on sculpting an already beautiful physique, just as an example. When it's no longer about a system of health or a healthy outlook, but rather when it becomes excessive, an obsession with this system without incorporating other components, such as the spiritual system or the personal development system. Why did April and May activate our personal development system? In other words, during that period, codes were being uploaded that are necessary for every person, so to speak, for their upgrade. That is, programs were being brought up where a person needed to come to certain realizations, close certain programs, and attune their personal energy, the so-called ego, meaning that energetic code which, so to speak, is connected to the game matrix. If we put it in these terms, of course, everything is much deeper, and not everything is as subjective from the perspective of the matrix and its game. It is a kind of living organism that is constantly evolving, constantly changing direction due to the energies that are being immersed into the planet. And we accordingly are connected to the planet itself through the personality system and through the body. That is why our bodies are so actively affected by these energies. The impact of these energies on the body began in May and will continue to June. In other words, programs related to the body will be brought to the surface so that a person can direct their attention there, that is, their energy, for correction, support, and healing. Some will become teachers, while others will simply restore their own bodies in different ways. Because naturally, the next stage, July and August, will be focused on spiritual scenarios, yes. And already in September, we will, so to speak, boldly move forward with what we have integrated. What does it mean to integrate? You receive an energetic wave that adapts to your physical body. Right. And at this moment, you have options. If your awareness is high, then by this time you have already attuned yourself to your body. That is, you know whether your body is active or passive. You know where you have tension, where you have blocks, for what reasons these blocks exist, and you don't just follow trends blindly, right? Instead, you choose the type of activity that is not harmful to your body, but rather is developmental, supportive, and expansive, right? This is called awareness. That is, it doesn't mean that you are instantly healed. Oh no, healing will occur through the union of the energy of the spirit and the personality. In other words, you will go through certain processes, and that is what will allow you to unite. Have you noticed, for example, when a person with a large body mass suddenly starts losing weight rapidly? They experience certain moments of enlightenment, right? He starts to understand more than he knew before. In general, there's an entire structure to it. He has to work on his personality so that it doesn't give up, right? He needs to use willpower, work with his spirit, and understand the deeper spectrums, right? Why is the body so important? The energies that will continue to come in will be even more powerful and will have a stronger effect on the vascular system and the lymphatic system. And those people who are closed off psychologically, that is mentally, physically, bodily, and spiritually blocked, right? In other words, we believe everyone in our own truths, but we don't feel our higher self. That's what this closed-mindedness is, right? These energies will simply destroy a person. That's why these codes are being uploaded to us now. The code is sometimes uploaded if, for example, your level allows you to be aware of a large amount of energy. You immediately understand which program has started uploading, and you begin to walk in that direction, even if you feel fear about scaling up. And let's say, for example, your task right now is to go for expansion, right? Or to change both physically and spiritually. So these kinds of aspects, of course, are serious. Moving on, for example, they channel energy into spiritual development. What does this mean? Often, this destroys the personality. In other words, all the personality's programs begin to shut down and the person is reset to zero. A clear sign that a spiritual program is being loaded is the connection with a higher structure, which will allow all the others to be united. these 2 or 3 energies are all interconnected. That is the energy of the body, the energy, let's put it this way. I wanted to make this a separate topic, but since it's come up, I'll present it in larger portions. There are 3 types of consciousness: the consciousness of the body, the consciousness of the spirit, and the consciousness of the personality itself. These 3 types of consciousness, imagine, for example, like I do with my girls, the ones I work with, right? Good analogy is the swan, the pike, and the crayfish. In other words, these are 3 types, 3 different, let's say, aspects that are supposed to pull the same harness together. And if you've only gone off into the spirit, say retreated to a monastery, I'm exaggerating, of course you're all spiritual, but your relationships around you are ruined, there's nothing to eat, everything is wrong, everyone is wrong, then that's not spirituality, that's spiritual pride, where you've drifted off and let's say cut yourself off from what is supposed to give you strength. The consciousness of the body plays a very important role in conducting energies and, let's say, bringing spiritual power down into the space of the earth. That is, through the physical body, you can channel these energies, in other words, materialize them. And the personality is that, well, that entity, that consciousness, which if you unpack it is, I actually like the method of numerological and astrological unpacking of the personality. The energies possessed by the personality are described very subtly, and you can immediately determine the direction and the ways or abilities through which you can realize the energies that your spirit has. We don't talk about tasks, because tasks are the energy that you channel into the space. Depending on the point in time, these tasks, that is, energies, will be transformed. At the age of 12, you'll be building Lego sets. At the age of 20, you'll be organizing things, yes? Meaning you'll be trying to start your own business. At the age of 30, you'll be creating your own product. At the age of 40, with this transformed business energy, you might become an entrepreneur, an innovator, introducing your product to a country where it doesn't exist yet, or something like that, right? And in this way, we express this energy through methods, abilities, and personality. A person's talents are the methods that the soul needs to develop. That is, she has a predisposition to this. For example, you notice that your child draws beautifully, but let's say not quite at the level of fine art yet, though it's still very beautiful. And they need to develop this energy, so they attend some kind of club and work on developing this energy. In other words, they unlock this energy, this talent. But that doesn't mean they will become an artist. It means you are developing their creativity, non-standard thinking that isn't stereotypical. You see, very often during consultations, people ask questions about their career direction, and with the same methods, different people receive different answers, because everything depends on the very structure of your energy, the structure of your soul, and the tasks that your soul has come to fulfill in this world. For example, a person might have a talent for drawing, but their purpose is in healing. Do you understand? And then they will really want to draw, but they will need to move toward healing as their path. Drawing is necessary as a way to gain that experience. So I want to sum up, because they love to explain things to me with all sorts of examples, yes, but they say that this way it will be clearer, more understandable, and more concise. In a sense, it is concise, of course. The energies have been uploaded. We are also currently uploading the energy of the body. In June, it will be uploaded, and the next stage is spiritual scenarios. And all these stories that you have received, that is, you are receiving certain impulses. And so if you, I want to say right now, there are some of you who are watching and listening to me, right? Some of you wrote in the messages that you made a plan. That's absolutely right. I want to say that you truly did the right thing. You wrote down those important ideas and impulses that you will need in the future. That is, right now we are being sent impulses, and many will soon start learning. This will be like a system for developing the spirit. Do not view learning as the development of talent. Any type of learning is the development of the system of the spirit. The development of talent is when, through experience, I express what my spirit has accumulated. In other words, what I have learned, yes, I begin to manifest it into the world. Then and only then do I begin to develop my talents and gifts. Otherwise, you can learn from anyone. Be anyone you want. And if you haven't expressed, so to speak, these energies, meaning you haven't brought them into experience, haven't put them into practice, then frankly, it doesn't really matter, if you'll pardon the expression, but that's just how it is. In other words, this energy gets blocked and becomes no better than some kind of psycho-emotional block. It will keep ringing inside you until you let it out. Do you understand? So when you attend the training, you need to release that energy. This is a law of throughput physics, right? In other words, I give, and take to maintain balance. Even if you doubt yourself as a specialist, if you feel you lack experience, do it for your friends, for your acquaintances. Right now, we will be given a large number of impulses, as if guiding us toward who we need to become, in a certain sense. That is, what kind of energy has been activated within us to be channeled into the world. In simple terms, what I will be doing next. That's what I will be doing, even if right now you have no idea how to make it happen. I was also given an idea just now. Honestly, I have no idea how to make it happen. But if it was given, it means that over time it will come together. Don't rush to act on this impulse right away. Let's put it this way. You get an impulse and you drop everything and rush off to make it happen. Sometimes we need time. Excuse me. Sometimes we need time to bring something to fruition. Time works like this. You receive an impulse, and gradually each day a certain structure is outlined. In other words, you might get an impulse every day for the same task. If the task is large in scope, you might not even be able, in some sense, to handle the entire volume at once. Do you understand? Exactly. And that's why it will be loaded in gradually. The systems will provide work with the body. That is, impulses will go in whatever directions are needed. I need to go here, I need to go there, I want this, I want that. If you have impulses to start certain actions that you have been preparing for a long time, this is not something new. It has just come to you now and you have set it in motion. This is something you knew about at least 6 months ago. Now is the time to manifest this energy into space. If this impulse is still raw, so to speak, if the energy has just arrived, then simply start gradually outlining the entire structure. The energy is being integrated step by step. Next, place of residence. You submitted for migration in April, May, right? It happened there due to certain circumstances and so on. But the anchoring in the field is in September. So for those people who still have plans to move, to find their place under the sun, you will still have, let's say, some period of time. You'll still be spinning, who am I, where am I going, how, where am I heading, and so on. So there will still be a certain period of time when you'll be thinking, searching for your place where you will feel at home. Remember, home is not always the feeling of I feel at home. Very often you might not even feel at home when you're actually at home. Look for a sense of peace where you simply feel calm. That is the state you are searching for. Next, by the way, the implementation will be closely connected with the place in which you will be. That's why very often, until you stabilize your environment, in terms of I've settled down, I'll be here for 2 years, until that moment, neither your financial system nor well, even for example, if you live together and are moving, things might not fall into place. And suddenly you decide to move, but you haven't actually decided to move, meaning you aren't moving. So if you decided to move but you aren't moving, it means you haven't really decided to move. It means you just need to decide that you won't be moving. That is, when you determine in your mind that no, you are actually staying, from that moment on, fixation occurs in the field and event lines begin to form according to your energies, which connect you to the place where you are. Your activities, the way you realize yourself, and so on, are structured for you. Next, what do you really need to understand? Right now, we will be clearly given a system for connecting with our higher self. You can connect with it in any way you like. Well, that's just how I put it, any way you like, right? But the higher your level of awareness, the more you hear, let's say, the louder and clearer the message from your higher self becomes. That is, when there is no noises in your head, when there is no criticism in your mind, when you are filled with energy, you hear clearly when you are cleaning, when you are exercising. These are, let's say, direct connections to the channel of your higher self. Why is this necessary? The 3D programs, so to speak, have influenced us with a kind of dissolving effect. Now we are going to learn how to build, I'll call it an element of a boundary, but it's actually something else. It might even be a form. In other words, each of us will be building our own form of consciousness without dissolving into other people. What does that mean? Let's say you were living your life in Germany. It's great, the nature, everything. Then you meet a friend who came from Greece and she tells you how sunny and wonderful it is there. And you sit there in the moment and think, why am I sitting here looking at the rain? I should go to Greece. But you actually don't need to go there, you see? That's the moment when it happens, you end up going to Greece. You stay in Greece and realize that you've destroyed everything you had and you haven't found happiness, right? I know that many of you will understand what I mean. Of course, all the examples I'm giving are endearing. At that moment, dissolution occurred. You dissolved into the energy of another person. In other words, you still haven't built your own form. And these energies that have come in will help us build our own form. you could call it the birth of a new self, or you could call it the awakening of the self. However you feel about these names, of course, you can call it that, but you've grasped the meaning. That's why it's extremely important and significant in the current period, at this particular time, with the energies that are now entering the space, to catch the impulses that have come in and act in accordance with them. But don't blame yourself if it doesn't happen right away, and don't react to other people's impulse. Not all impulses from others are signs, but someone else's impulses can sweep you into a completely different flow, not your own. Pay attention to such situations, states, and moments. I'm very pleased that you write to me with your responses and opinions. I sincerely thank everyone who writes. Feedback is, like a kind of energetic value. Yes, your exchange is very valuable to me. Thank you. Write to me about what you feel regarding the energies that have already passed, as well as the energies that will be coming during the day of the summer solstice, the solar state. Yes, I will record a more detailed explanation. Thank you.